Let's make a sphere. I'm going to smooth that out. And then above that, I will make another plane. So I've made geometry and I've also made a plane because I want you to see the difference in when a cloth hits a plane versus when it hits a sphere. Sometimes you will get cloth clipping through a plane or something like this easier than you'll get it clipping through geometry, and sometimes you won't. It's a good test to do. Now this top part is going to be our cloth. However, what's it missing right now? How many pieces is it? It's one. That means this only has 4 points to bend on total. So I'm going to go to my subdivision width and subdivision height. If you've clicked off it, remember you can go select it, click on input polyplane 2, and we're just going to put these at the max, which I think is 50/50. For cloth, to get it to bend more realistically, you're going to need more points. Now, if it's something like denim or leather, which by the way, that's why almost all your video game characters in like the GameCube era are wearing jeans or like a leather jacket, is because it doesn't bend as much. So if you have a like slightly blocky bending, it looks more natural. It's not until you get higher poly games where you start to get the more flowing things. So that's why like Dante's jacket is leather on a PS2, or Leon Kennedy's entire outfit is just like denim and leather. So from there, we're going to click on this cloth piece. We should probably get in the habit of doing what? Naming our objects, so that way, once we start getting complex scenes, we'll know what they are. So I just named it cloth, sphere, and ground. You can name it whatever you need to remember it, but when you have polyplane 1, polyplane 2, polyplane 20, it gets a little complex to remember which polyplane is which. So we name our items, or objects, and then in this drop-down menu right here, we want to go to FX. So get your drop-down menu and go to FX. So under FX, we have a lot of menus, and we have a lot of options here that appeared. Anything that says N is going to stand for a simulation. I think it links to the nucleus. So I can go to N cloth, and with this top part selected, the one I want to be cloth, I will go to N cloth, create N cloth. Now, if I go here, you'll see that this now says N-cloth on the object, it's linked to it, but I also have a nucleus. And once again, if you need that, you click here, go to N-cloth, create N-cloth.
I did create N-cloth, but this ain't appearing.
That's because that's a button right here. If you all see where my mouse is dancing, that's a list. Now the nucleus, if I select the nucleus, this is where I'm going to be able to set gravity, gravity direction, air density, wind speed. If I wanted this to be a more hectic simulation, I could up the wind speed. If I wanted to make it so that maybe it was on the moon, I could put the gravity of the moon instead of Earth. You know, Earth is 9.8 or negative 9.8, but the direction is set down here. It has that gravity -1. If I wanted it to float up, have inverted gravity, I could make that a +1. Every simulation you run is going to harken back to this nucleus. So this is where you set those options. That's where you set the actual physics. When you go to Mr. Cervec, same thing. You'll see the physics there. Now, right now, we've told this to be cloth. And if we hit play and simulated it, don't hit play and simulate it yet, but if we did, it wouldn't collide into anything. Why? Yep, we haven't set a passive collider. So if you want it to run into something, you have to select it and go to nCloth, create passive collider. And anything you want it to collide with, you have to set that. And because of that, some of those game glitches make a little more sense, right? When you'll have a cloth that just hits you but goes through something else, they didn't set it as a collider. And the more colliders you set, the more realistic your scene will interact, but also the harder it will be for it to calculate. So it is a balance. Once again, it's our eternal balance of making it look good to making something the computer can easily handle. Now to simulate it, you just hit play. And I have my simulation now. If I scroll through, it should at least read what I did, unless, of course, I break it and then hit stop. So go back. So any of them that aren't working, I'll have to come through. Now, there are other things you can do. We could add our nCloth. And I'm sure you guys can all see your tooltips. So we can sew together, make patterns. But you can also, I said, remove your cloth. You can input mesh, create current display, delete history. You can also change it so it's working either on local space or world space. Now, when you get more complex with physics, you can actually paint on different properties. So just for anyone who sees that it's working mostly how they want, but they want it to work a little differently, those are tutorials that you can start looking at. And on this nCloth, you can set the collision, the wind, and start seeing the different options. Select a vertice, shift-click the object I want it to link to. From here, I would go to nCloth and point to surface. There are other constraints you can do. However, for cloth, I've really found the point to surface tends to work the best. It's going to put in a line so that it knows it's connected to this. And then we're going to simulate it.